Preparing to live stream. Setting it up.
Jim Long needs to be promoted.
Okay. It is live.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the July 2024 meeting of the Washington County Committee for Community Involvement. My name is Bruce Bartlett. I am the chair of this jolly band of community builders. Mary Manso is the vice chair, and everybody else here plays a critically important role in keeping this ship going. Tonight, we have the second edition of the county's Land Use and Transportation Department presentation series. Last month, we had transportation planning. And this month, we have transportation funding. How do we pay for all of the roads that are being built? And in some ways, Washington County is very fortunate compared to other counties or municipalities. So I'd like to introduce Diami Valentine, Washington County Transportation Planner, Department of Land Use and Transportation, to fill us in on how we pay for this stuff. So Diami, take it away.
All right, thanks, Bruce. Just checking you can hear me.
Yes, you're coming through.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I do have a presentation to walk through, and then happy to take questions as you prefer, either through the presentation or at the end of the presentation. So I will defer to you, Chair and Vice Chair.
I think that a short clarifying question during the presentation is fine. Substantive questions will be held for the conclusion.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Sure. Okay, are you seeing a full screen of the presentation?
Yes, it's in presentation mode. You're good to go.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you. So I'm, as Bruce introduced me, I'm Diami Valentine, the Principal Transportation Planner with the Department of Land Use and Transportation, and appreciate the opportunity to be here for round 2 of your transportation series. So I'm going to walk through a few slides here to discuss transportation funding in Washington County. And here's a quick overview of the structure of the presentation. So wanted to highlight just, what are the capital infrastructure improvement priorities in Washington County, explore the transportation funding sources that Washington County is a direct recipient or beneficiary of, discuss some of the structural funding challenges that we and other partners are faced with in today's realities, and then kind of preparing for the legislative session, highlight just some of the previous transportation investment packages and then some of the discussions that have been ongoing in preparation for the 25 legislative session. And then just quickly highlight some of the discretionary grants that we keep an eye on and maybe worth noting for community members. So just in terms of thinking about capital infrastructure and the priorities, so big picture, Washington County maintains a lot of infrastructure, over 1,300 miles of managed streets and roads. Within that, there's a lot of bridges, and bridges are expensive, 183 of them in our inventory, as well as more than 3,000 culverts. So the county is big, a lot of infrastructure to maintain. And how we prioritize some of the funding in investments in our transportation system, really looking at building, sorry. Having technical difficulties, apologize. Here we go. So really building and upgrading our county-wide transportation system and infrastructure to improve safety, connectivity, and equitable access for all users is a key priority. Improving our streets to include multimodal features such as sidewalks, bicycle facilities, pedestrian crossings at transit stops, as well as upgrading curb ramps and traffic signals, maintaining our existing systems with, really focused on maintaining a high quality of infrastructure. Specifically, we have a pavement conditions index rating. We try to maintain 80 or above for most of our facilities. And then providing certain transit connector, first and last mile or community and job connector transit services, as well as addressing network connectivity in our urban areas. So in terms of the revenue sources that we receive, that makes up the budget, these are kind of two halves, or it's actually slightly less than the half. But we have transportation funding sources that contribute to how we maintain and operate our facilities, but then also how we construct new infrastructure improvements. So the capital project focus piece of the pie is made up of some dedicated funding sources, and then the county road fund portion is made up of dedicated sources, and then there's kind of a combination. And so I'll walk through in a little bit more detail each one of these funding sources in the following slides here. So some of the existing state shared revenues that the county receives, we receive a portion, a 30% split from the state highway fund that's generated through state gas taxes and fees. This makes up the largest portion of our operations and maintenance funding at around 35%. We also receive statewide transportation improvement fund. This is the 0.1% employee payroll tax that came out of the 27 legislative session transportation package. This goes directly to support transit and public transportation service providers, which now the county has been designated as. So we receive a portion of those funds, which we have benefited from, and supporting transit that benefits lower income populations, specifically high school and college access, and community connector services within the TriMet Service District. We also receive gain share, which is state income tax revenues generated from the strategic investment programs, agreements that we have in place for the last 10 years or so. And this is really focused on improving school access and traffic management and congestion mitigation. Then there are local revenue sources, which are enabled by state statute. One of those is a county gas tax. So we take advantage of that provision by levying a 1% per gallon tax within Washington County, and that revenue is split between the county and the cities within the county. So the county receives 40%, and the cities divvy up 60%. We also are able to collect vehicle registration fees. That is equivalent to, it's $30 per year for a vehicle, slightly less for motorcycles and mopeds. And this is also split between the counties, a different share. The county receives 60%, with the cities receiving 40% based on population. And then we have transportation development tax, and we've had iterations of this type of system development charge for a number of years. First, it was a traffic impact fee, and these, as well as sub-area system development charges, and these funds really support new capital projects to address increased transportation demand from growth and new development in particular. And then we have a couple unique, as Bruce noted. We're fairly fortunate in that the community members have really supported investing in the transportation system. So 2 property tax revenue programs. One is the Urban Road Maintenance District. So this serves areas outside cities, inside the urban growth boundary, and maintains, the focus of this, there's about 430 miles of neighborhood streets inside the district that is maintaining those facilities is the primary mission of this program. And it also has 3 dedicated programs, including the pedestrian and biking improvement program that has been in existence for since 2011. And that has invested over 33 million in sidewalk and walking and biking improvements over that time frame. It also supports the neighborhood streets program. Oops, sorry about that. Oh boy. Let's see. Where we go? Where do we go here? Ah, there we go. Okay. My mouse is acting up. And then we also have a sidewalk repair grant program, which reimburses property owners up to $2,000 for approved sidewalk repair and replacement. And the program can award up to $200,000 in grants per year. And then the most substantial portion of our capital investment revenue is the Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program, which since 1986, as is noted here, has funded more than 160 transportation projects, totaling more than $1.35 billion. So a lot of investment in our transportation system. And the board really has continued its strong commitment to this program with its recent funding allocations of $150 million into bonds for completion of some of the high growth cost sharing programs, as well as previous 3D and 3E projects. And it also, the board took action on $250 million MISTIP 3F funding program, which this program, as you see here, supports or will support over the next 5+ years, 13 major street projects. They also included a $13 million opportunity fund, which really leverages county, cities, and agency partners to leverage other federal, state, and regional funding. And then new this round is a $30 million more large project match allocation. And it includes some specific projects identified to be eligible for that pot of funding. And then it includes an increase a portion to replace bridges in rural areas. As we know, there's a lot of those needs out there. And then also continuing to invest in the intelligent transportation system to improve safety for all travelers at $2 million over the program. So I also wanted to note, just in terms of how this is reflected and programmed. So the board has adopted a capital improvement plan, which covers fiscal years 2024 through 2029. And so this includes all of the capital projects, 80 total over that time frame. Significant investment in expenditures in the upcoming biennium, and then also includes forecast revenues and expenditures through 2029, and a lot of these are focused on those capital project improvements funded by MISTIP, safe routes to school improvements funded by Gain Share, and then the ADA ramp improvements and pedestrian and biking improvements funded by ERMD, as well as the ADA ramp and sidewalk improvements funded by road fund, and then the various bridge and seismic upgrades and other operational improvements. So now on to some of the challenges that we are faced with. I directly pulled from a presentation that ODOT has been circulating and sharing with community members and elected officials. Just some structural funding challenges that we face, which is applicable to us as well as the state. So just considering the revenue sources that I just discussed, the fuel tax revenue has seen significant declines and is only anticipated to further decrease as fuel efficiency improvements are realized. So they note here a 25% less fuel per year results in less revenue. There's also just some rigidity in how the funds are generated and how they can be expended. The reliance on just a few sources of revenue. Again, Washington County, we're somewhat unique in that respect. And then really, one of the significant factors, and unfortunately the board's leadership acknowledged this, is that rise of inflation, really seeing increasing costs, causing substantial delays or not being able to deliver on projects because of the increased cost over the last 5+ years. So to, kind of respond to some of those challenges potentially, and as has occurred in the past, the legislature has really have considered those challenges and attempted to respond to those with starting around what are the needs, what are the improvements, what are the challenges that we're facing, and there has been in this case, I'm thinking back at the HB 2017 transportation package. That was really focused around addressing bottlenecks within the metro region, and so there was specific dedicated funding to specific projects, the Rose Quarter, Abernathy Bridge, and 217 improvements. So that's kind of there's a antithesis to how some of these transportation packages are generated and kind of evolves. But these packages have been significant and continue to be significant in terms of how we are funding our transportation system. So thinking ahead in terms of what the future holds, legislative leadership and the governor have been publicly committed to a transportation package. And, that obviously doesn't mean it will necessarily happen, but there is some commitment. And what's reflected here is there's some regional conversations to help and kind of formulate some agreement on some of the priorities. Some of the emphasis and focus at with the legislature is really addressing some of those challenges that ODOT has noted, really just getting back to basics, making sure we can fund and stabilize operations and maintenance, and then thinking about longer term sustainable funding. And at the local level, we want to make sure that we ensure and continue to receive the proportional share of revenues generated. There's also an emphasis in finishing what we started, with the major projects that were out of the HB 2017 package. And then thinking about programmatically, some of those programs that are really advantageous to some of the transportation needs within our region, including the safe urban arterials and main streets. So that's focused on ODOT's Great Streets program. Also increasing state funding for transit capital and operations, and increasing just resiliency of our infrastructure, specifically airports and bridges, which is no small task. And then I wanted to highlight, which is why I have a colored box around it, but there's a Joint Transportation Committee. It has been doing a statewide tour and doing kind of listening sessions and workshops around this topic in particular, around transportation funding. Their final stop is here in Hillsborough, Friday, September 27th. So that is an opportunity to share some of these, from a agency and elected official and leadership standpoint to communicate some of these local priorities, but also there will be an opportunity for public comment and sharing some of your lived experience around what some of these priorities might and or what transportation funding can do for you. And then finally, I want to just highlight some of the discretionary transportation funding opportunities that we keep an eye on and are forthcoming. So federal grants, there's actually a lot of funding opportunities, discretionary funding opportunities available. These two are ones that we have been successful with. The RAISE grant program, that's how we're funding the Council Creek Regional Trail construction project, among others. At the state level, the Community Paths program is for off-street biking and walking improvements. The Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, there's discretionary grants associated with that that is more than overprescribed, so it's very competitive. Innovative Mobility, this is a newer grant program, but it's eligible projects include like bike share programs or transit stop improvements. It's pretty broad, but interesting opportunity there. At the regional level, they have their Regional Travel Options program that has ongoing grants at various levels. So they have all the way down from like micro grants for community groups up to larger, what they call core partner grants. That would be for an agency that's committed to supporting travel options programs. And then most recently, the flexible funds allocation. This is on a 3-year cycle. So they're the Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation just took action on the program direction for the 27 through 30 cycle. And included within that is they are exploring a bond program, which is intended to really support, major transit capital investments, which is historically what they call their step one funds have been dedicated for in the past. So thinking like the Orange Line and some of the MAX extensions have been funded through that bond program. And then what they call their step two, more discretionary grants. These fund project development, anything from project development to construction. And it has ranged in types of projects, but the kind of sweet spot is like $5 million funding packages for construction projects, which these days doesn't actually deliver much. So have to be strategic about those proposals. But those are ones that that at least the flexible funds allocation is most immediate for some of us at the county and thinking about opportunities there. So these are, we would love to hear interest. Any ideas, feel free to reach out to me if there are some fantastic projects that you think your community would be interested in elevating. Please reach out to me and I can float that with our leadership and get that through the process.
Excuse me, Giammi, I see that Gretchen has a clarifying question.
Oh, yes, of course. I can't see. There we go.
Hi. I know that you have limited funding, and I understand that. When I was on the council in Tigard took almost all of its streets that had been county operated over. And I've noticed that there's a heck of a lot of major streets in cities that the county is still operating, and that's taking a lot of money that could be available for unincorporated areas. And obviously, this is somewhat above your pay grade, but it seems to me it would be appropriate for the board and the department to really look at some of those major streets and get them transferred to the cities and get that load off of your back. That's comment one. Number two, while I was on both the Tigard and King City Council, I served on the Transportation Policy Committee for the League, for LOC. And the counties and the League were not always operating in sync when they go to the legislature. I would strongly urge that the county work on making sure that everybody is playing well together when you go to ask for money from the state. And finally, my third comment with respect to the innovative mobility issue, there are no tricycles available. There are a lot of disabled individuals, I happen to be one of them, who cannot ride a bike. The tricycles are incredibly expensive for an individual to buy. They're 3 to 4 times the cost of a bike. And would be interesting if you could look at including that as a possible grant opportunity for disabled citizens here in the county, both in the cities and obviously in the unincorporated area. Thank you.
Great comments. Interesting idea about the tricycles. I think that is actually an eligible expenditure. So I think it would have to be a shared mobility option. So it would be like I know Tualatin has a Lime scooter share program. So it'd be something similar to that where you could rent them essentially. But thank you. That does conclude my presentation. So I can drop out of presentation mode so I can see folks. Unless there's specific questions. I can pull it back up if need be.
Yes, we have Roger, and I would assume that's Ellingson on the in the attendees who has a question. Any I don't see any let's go to the attendees. Roger?
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, that was a good presentation. I had a question on the intelligent transportation systems to improve safety for all travelers. What that program involves. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. That really supports improving our signals, and that includes like at any intersections, those pedestrian signals, if you click at the signal and need to get across the street, then that sends a signal. So that's inclusive in that. So it's really our signal upgrade program.
Okay. Let me see here. Mary, you were next.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
So on slide 5, the state gas tax, the 50-30-20 split, can you give a little bit more of an explanation on that?
Sure, yeah. So the state receives 50% of the revenues generated from the state gas tax and other fees, which I think those are like DMV related fees. So the state retains 50% of that, county receives 30%, and then cities receive 20%. And it's
And then
proportional. Sorry.
is it proportional based upon population between the cities and the county, or is it miles of road?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I should know that off the top of my head. But I don't.
And then
I will have to get
again,
back to you.
the county gas tax, also a question about that, where the cities get 60% and the county gets 40%. And I'm assuming urban and incorporated is considered to be county, and all of those county roads that go through cities are also county roads. That's a question.
Yeah, the county maintained facilities through the cities are primarily, unless there's some agreements in place, county maintained. So that proportional share, the county gas tax, I believe. Well, maybe Melissa has her hand up. Maybe she has an answer right off the top of her head, but.
And I guess part of the question is do those percentages ever change? Because over time, I think you have ended up with a larger, maybe proportion of the county that is urban and incorporated in terms of roads. But I don't know. And the county gas tax is spent on just arterials and collectors, and you rely on the ERM for local and neighborhood routes.
Correct. Yeah.
So I guess there really isn't an increase in roadway in urban and incorporated as urban and incorporated develops to a whole lot. Don't those numbers stay pretty similar as areas develop?
Yeah, I mean, I would say we're actually probably declining the number of roadway miles that we are maintaining, operating as cities develop and new urban areas develop. So that's, but you're correct in that county share includes maintaining those collector and arterial facilities in urban unincorporated Washington County, as well as within the cities.
But with the cities, again, their money is not really going toward arterials and collectors, because those arterials are mainly owned by either the state or by the county. So their county gas tax is being spent on their local roads as well as neighborhood routes and potentially collectors. Am I looking at that wrong?
Well, I can't speak to how the cities allocate their revenue, but you're correct in how we allocate that revenue. The gas tax and vehicle registration fees and state gas tax do contribute to operations and maintenance of county facilities, which do go through cities as well as unincorporated arterials and collectors.
And did I get an answer as to whether those percentages change and how the percentages might be reevaluated at some point in time?
The percentage doesn't change. I mean, it's a 40, the county gas tax is 40% to county, 60% to cities.
But who decided that percentage? Is that a decision that was made by the Board of Commissioners? Is there state law that indicates that that's how it has to be split, or?
Melissa's nodding her head
Oh.
yes to the latter.
Okay, okay. And I would assume that as the county gas tax was voted on by the public, that was within what the public voted to approve, or?
Actually, in the interest, can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can hear you.
In the interest of full transparency, the board adopted the vehicle registration fee. It was defeated by the voters 2 years prior, and then in 2016, the board adopted it, and that they were legally allowed to do that. You're correct that the 60-40 split is set by the state, and that does not change. We could have gone as high as $42 per year with the vehicle registration fee. The board adopted for the more conservative 30, so as not to overly burden drivers or vehicle owners, I guess is a better way to say it. Have I answered your question? Because I'm pretty sure I forgot what it was.
She was
It was,
Mary
it
was
was more-
specifically. Oh, sorry.
it was the percentages, whether those percentages of allocation between the city and county can change.
They can't
And-
unless the state would change them.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
But, it seems like, because Washington County has such a huge portion of the county that's urban and incorporated. And I would think each county would be different in the proportion of the county that is urban versus rural. It seems like an interesting mandate from the state, but I think that's kind of the way mandates come from the state.
Well, the other thing is, I don't know for sure how many counties actually have a vehicle registration fee. It tends to be your more urban counties. I think Clackamas does.
But you have both the vehicle registration and the 1% gas tax,
Yes.
Correct.
and they're both allocated based upon the same formula. Okay, thank you.
But the percentages are flipped. So just to be clear, so the county receives 40% of the gas tax, yet 60% of the vehicle registration fees.
Oh, okay.
Any more questions from the attendees or the panelists on this subject? Paul, what do you got?
Oh, one question having to do with timing of funding from various buckets, how they affect project scheduling. Can you comment about that?
Yeah, I mean, we are for capital projects, because of the property tax, we essentially it's a pay as you go program. So, other than the bond program that the board adopted, that is shoring up the inflationary costs for past projects that have had challenges being delivered. So the funds are programmed as funds come in essentially. So it is a general fund transfer. And so that provides some assurity over the cycle of the program, the MISTIP 3F program. So projects can get into the project development process and then be delivered on a periodic cycle according to when the funds will be available.
I'm thinking about when it comes to the interstate bridge program, how the cost keeps going up and up because the action isn't occurring very quickly enough.
Right.
And maybe the same thing is happening within the county when it comes to the funding that you get from various sources. That this is actually influencing the cost of these items that you're trying to maintain or improve on.
Yeah, no, that's great point. Certainly delivering projects sooner saves, defers that cost that would be realized if it was delivered later,
There's
or
one other
avoids
question
that cost.
that I have, and that was with when you're talking about grants, mobility grants, and I forget what the other one was. Are these grants that are only available to government entities or to anybody that's trying to do a improvement project of whatever?
Most of these are geared towards, I mean, to be eligible, you have to be an agency or a government entity or jurisdiction.
That's what I wanted to know.
There are, I will say, the travel options program does have smaller kind of community-oriented grants. So if you're interested in that program in particular, you could potentially
Thank you.
seek those funds.
Okay, Mary, what do you have?
So, Misstep, the extra allocation for rural bridges, with each of the commissioner districts getting a set amount, was there any consideration about using the rural bridges as part of the District 4 allocation?
I'm not sure if so. These are rural bridges, and District 4 has most of the rural area, although District 3 does have some as well. And so you're saying why wasn't that accounted for in the?
Well, I just wondering if it was a consideration at all, because in a sense, it seems like it's double dipping for the rural areas.
I see Melissa's hand raised. Perhaps she has a response.
Yes, yes, I'm sorry. I keep turning off my camera because I have cat issues, as many of you know. So yes, you're correct, Mary, that there is. I get where you're saying it's double dipping. I understand that perspective, but at the same time, bridges are kind of a different animal. And so when we're talking about bridges, the rural areas are the ones that typically have the bridges that are in the most dire straits. And if we didn't, the whole area, I mean, we're talking about connectivity when we're talking about a bridge in particular, not just a street improvement. And I don't mean to say just in the sense that I'm minimizing its importance, but the rural bridges, there's a lot of danger associated with a failing bridge that perhaps there isn't. I mean, you can have a road that may not be in great condition, but when a bridge or a culvert fails, that's a whole different animal. And so there is priority given to rural bridges as far as a separate category goes. That same thing, though, I mean, there's a flip side to this, right? Because we have an allocation for intelligent transportation systems, as Deami was indicating, right? And those tend to, as he mentioned, focus on pedestrian signals. They also, though, involve traffic signals, and they involve curve warning systems and other things like that. Those tend to focus mostly on the urban areas. So it's all a trade-off. And I think we do a good job of balancing those expenditures in that way.
Okay, thank you.
That's it, Mary? You don't got anything else for me? I'm kind of sad.
Careful what you ask for.
I know, good point. I'll stop talking.
Okay, one of the subjects that I didn't hear discussed that might be germane to this is the Washington County Coordinating Committee. Um, so it's as I understand it, the Washington County Coordinating Committee, or WCCC, is a collaboration between the county and the cities to manage the projects that are funded by both MISTIP and the transportation TDT, Transportation Development Tax. Could you talk a little bit about the WCCC?
Yeah, sure. They do have a role, a key role. Have been, I mean, the that group really coalesced around that 1986 time period. It had been, evolving, and obviously coordination and collaboration had been happening before that, but coalesced around transportation funding in particular in 1986, and the various around the MISTIP program and the development of that, as well as the transportation impact fee at the time. So critical collaboration amongst that group. The role that they have, in their charter have and that the board has deferred to them with some of the decision making in terms of how those funds are expended, specifically with the transportation development tax. So they do have a direct role in kind of authorizing the expenditures and of the transportation development tax. So each entity collects revenue, and they have to come to the committee and say, the project is eligible for expenditure. County maintains really that the project list, but it is approved by the WCCC. And then the board is really the holder of the Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program, but they have deferred, for example, some or delegated some of its authority in how the Opportunity Fund is allocated. And that is acknowledging that each one of those partners are out there doing good work, looking for competitive grant opportunities, and that pot of fund is specifically targeted towards those opportunities. So that's where the WCC, in addition to just having conversations around this, transportation funding, broader regional, state, and federal priorities, those kind of conversations are very fruitful, and that the WCCC is, really the purpose of that is to have those conversations. Oh, you're muted.
Does it meet monthly, or what's the meeting?
They do, yeah. So they meet monthly. So it's the appointed members of WCCC meet monthly, and then they also are supported by a staff level transportation advisory group as well.
Great. Gretchen, you got your hand up. What do you got? Gretchen. I can tell there's somebody looking for the mute button right there. Okay. Well, I guess she seems to have disappeared. Okay. Any other questions for the good of the order? Mary, you have your hand up still. I don't think you have a question, do you? Yep, nope. Okay, Diami, I appreciate you joining us tonight and sharing where the money comes from and where it goes. Like I said, this is the second edition of the Land Use and Transportation education series that the CCI is hosting. And we look forward to more of these coming up. So with that, I will bid you adieu. You're welcome to stick around and see what we have to say, but you're off the hook for being the presenter right now. So thanks again.
All right. Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, everybody.
You bet. Okay. Now we move on to the agenda, which includes a discussion about the CPO agenda preparation process, which was attached to the minutes that you received. And basically, this is the work of the steering committee and the community engagement department. We've both reviewed it. We've resolved the issues, and now we are ready to start putting it into motion. The basic flow discusses what the CPO leaders are responsible for and what community engagement staff is responsible for. So I wasn't intending to go through the entire thing tonight. What I would like is a volunteer to put a spreadsheet or to put a flow chart together that would lay out in a graphic form the process of getting an agenda submitted and approved. And the net object of this process is to make sure that we have an agenda that is approved by county council and is available a week before the regular meetings. And I think this accomplishes it pretty well. It does require that I break my habit of waiting until the day before a meeting to come up with an agenda. So now I have 2 weeks before the meeting to come up with an agenda, which, you know, is one of the funnest parts of this job, creating agendas. Does anybody who's read it have any comments on it, any observations or critiques? I would be happy to hear at least one. Don't make me ask how many people have even looked at it yet. Okay, Jim, what do you got?
I'm concerned the way that agendas are laid out by the Community Engagement Office. They have a front page and then they have more details. Often it's the details in an agenda that would draw people in. People are interested in issues in one thing or another. And the way that it's set out, it just says land use discussion or land use applications, one thing like that. So I'm a little concerned that it could be improved. The layout of the agenda notice. We used to have a newsletter and we used to have it more pages. I could write something up and it, you know, be something, but we can't do that now. But when there's an agenda, a lot of the interesting things are on, you know, people have to click once or twice to get there. So that's just my concern.
Well, I understand. I think we've addressed that. And there's a two-part, there are two parts to an announcing an agenda. The first one is the email that goes out. And in the email, there is a summary with a link to see the full agenda. And then the email announcement goes on to include a number of things of interest to the community. And in the email announcement, it is possible for CPO to add subject matter that will be announced in the email announcement. The full agenda includes all the details of the agenda. So I'm looking at, what is it, CPO 14, and there's the agenda sort of summary on the email announcement, and then there is the full agenda that's just the agenda with all the details. So how does that make sense to you, Jim?
Yeah, I understand how it works, Bruce, and it's been going this way for years. But the excitement is on the page, the second page, when you click or click again for the full agenda. And that's where people see different things. I mean, the first agenda is pretty much standard every month. Then if you click once or twice, you might find more detail. So that was my concern. I thought I should bring it out now. I don't think necessarily it's been addressed, but I'm concerned that we're trying to get more people involved, and if people see what we're doing, see more activities that we're doing, they might get more involved.
Well, that's certainly a long shot, but I mean, there is a so you're saying that the email announcement should contain the full agenda?
Yeah, somehow it should, the front page of it, if the front page was more highlighted and showed more, it might draw in more people. I mean, we have an agenda full of topics sometimes, and they're buried behind the first visible agenda. People open up their email and they see, oh, they're meeting again, blah blah blah. But if they open it up, click it once or twice, they might find more information.
Okay, I think that the way that it's being done now largely addresses that. But the next time I get an agenda, get a meeting announcement, I'll forward it to you and we can discuss the particulars of it, okay?
Okay.
Or in the CPO, or if you wanted to forward me the CPO 4M latest email announcement, we would have the same thing to look at. I don't know if I've captured the 4M announcement. So, Mary, what do you got?
I have to agree with Jim.
Okay.
And I think the intent of this document is to lay out the timeline, and it really wasn't intended to make changes to the CPO news and to the agenda as we know it. But the CPO news has really kind of overshadowed the agenda that we prepare. And the CPO news, it's like you have to click to the agenda, and then you also have to click if you want to see the second page of the agenda. And it's almost like that second page doesn't serve a real purpose now that the agendas aren't being mailed. It's a funky format, and I think there's more work that can be done. I think one of the things that bothers me a bit is that the CPO news and the agendas are both carefully labeled with "this information is provided to you by your CPO volunteers." And I think at this point, we actually have very little input into the CPO news. And I think it's interesting that that's the way it's labeled. But I think I think that's part of the bigger conversation. The bite at the apple this time was just to lay out the timeline, so we're all on the same page about when we as volunteers need to submit the information to OEICE and what our expectations are to get the information back from OEICE. If we submit information and then go off on a vacation, if we don't know when OEICE is going to be getting back to us about their proposals, it makes it really difficult for us as volunteers to know how to respond or when to respond.
So are you saying that's to get things in CPO news?
Well, to get stuff in CPO news, but when you submit your agenda, staff takes it and prepares the draft. You don't
Yeah.
know when that draft is coming back. And you as a leader need to review that draft because quite often there are changes that need to be made.
Isn't that in, that's
That's what the purpose of this document is.
right. And so
the
we've
purpose-
nailed that down.
Yeah, we've nailed that down. But I think what Jim's asking for is, can we talk about making changes to the actual documents? Does it make sense to have the agenda on the second page? Is there some way to add?
The agenda is on the first page.
No, the agenda is on, it's not on, when the email comes, the agenda is not on the first page.
Yeah, it is.
You have to click through. It's
No, you
a
don't.
summary of the agenda. When you get your
But-
CPO news, you never
Get
get,
your CPO news and basically most of the agenda is right there as the first thing. it has-
it's a summary. It's a summary, and it doesn't cover really everything that's happening in the meeting. And I think it's important that it be more than just the featured speakers.
Okay.
But I think this is a different conversation that we need to have. And I absolutely agree with what Jim has to say.
Okay.
And, in particular, it's like, if you have an open house that's coming up in your neighborhood or in your CPO, that should be front and center. And sometimes it's so buried in the CPO news that it's not clear that, it's happening in your neighborhood and you should be paying attention.
So you're saying that the things that are germane to the CPO should immediately follow the agenda on the CPO news.
Yes. And, there again, I don't know if OAICE is trying to do a generic CPO news and just plug in the the featured topics of the CPO agenda. I'm not clear as to, what they're able to put together with the CPO news.
Okay, sounds like we have a part 2 to this discussion. Unfortunately, we have
Yes.
a steering committee meeting at 11 o'clock tomorrow that we can kick this around in more. So, the address of the CCI steering committee is on the county webpage. I noticed that it's not in the CCI agenda, so we'll add that to the agenda in future publications. So does that sound okay, Mary?
Sounds great.
Okay. Stan, what do you got?
A number of times, and I'm not being specific any particular time, but our CPO meetings agenda approval comes out less than a week before our actual meeting.
The agenda gets published a week before the meeting.
It has not. In fact, I was going back over time and just looking at, there were times where it needed to be approved virtually 2 days before the actual meeting. That was when we first got the agenda meeting, because I have on my calendar a week before to post it on Nextdoor. And I have not done that. And I can't tell you how many years.
Okay, so I agree. And that's why the steering committee worked with community engagement to create this process flow so that it will be, the approved agenda will be available a week before the meeting.
Well, that's all fine and dandy, and kudos to the committee to propose that type of thing. But I guess in my experience, since the county has taken this over, they've not done a very well, haven't performed, I guess.
Well, and part of that is that the CPO leaders were not keenly aware of turning in an agenda 2 weeks prior to the meeting.
And they couldn't send a reminder or anything, perhaps.
Well, you mean to the
Or,
CPO leaders to have
scheduling
them,
something I think they're called auto email things. I don't know. I'm not familiar with technology at all. I don't even know what I'm doing here tonight. I have no clue as far as how to process any of this fantastic imaginary whodunit thing.
okay, duly noted. So you're asking for a reminder that the agenda
Reminders
is
would
due.
help for volunteers because they are what? Volunteers,
Yeah,
and often have other real world activities that they're doing.
yes, we
They're not
often
all
do.
retired. They're not
Yeah.
all twiddling their thumbs waiting to do something.
Okay.
So
Well,
Bruce, is that something we should add to the flow chart? 3 days before the agenda is due, a reminder from OAIC to the volunteers.
yeah, I have it noted down.
Well, and then I didn't see also in this list of wonderful things to do is providing the CPO leaders with potential topics or speakers or idea generation type things to help their functionality in this whole thing. Just saying.
Well, you're certainly right that that doesn't come from community engagement very often, but it does come from the CCI meeting.
Well,
Or-
and it's actually, if you look at the first line under draft agenda for the CPO leader, it says start agenda development, including scheduling speakers. The first bullet point is if requested, community engagement can assist with selecting topics, suggesting or scheduling speakers. So I think we've tried to cover that. Is there a better way to actually describe that?
I think it should
Need?
be what do they call that when it's when something is automatically sent out, that there's people that would
yeah.
like to talk
A
to the
reminder,
CPO.
just a,
They're auto. I mean, they're automatic.
Right.
Is what I'm trying to
Okay,
get. Is
so
that there are
let's-
people that in either agencies or departments or other community groups that would like to get in front of the CPOs, or
Okay.
a political person that actually would like to have an audience to.
It's been suggested, in fact, I think somebody has actually created a speaker list that leaders can refer to, but I don't know where that resides. Bruce, do you remember the conversation about creating a speaker list?
yeah, I don't think that anything has really materialized in a substantial kind of way for it. So let's kick that around in the steering committee tomorrow.
Okay, I give up. I mean, I give in.
Well, yeah.
I'm allowing. I mean,
You certainly made it. You made a good point, Stan. I appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Paul, what do you got?
Just to partially address what Stan was talking about. Most calendar programs on your computer have the ability to set reminders right in the calendar, and I would think suggest to people that's what they do, set the reminders in their calendar, because if they're in terms of email or something else, it's delayed by whenever you read your email. So it doesn't necessarily happen right away. But your calendar program on your computer, if you're at your computer, it's going to give you a reminder right away if you've set that in your calendar program. That's all I had to say.
Great. Okay, Mary, what do you got?
I'm done.
Oh, you're
Sorry.
done. Okay, so I didn't see anybody racing to the front of the class to create a flow chart. Is there any person who is adept with that kind of thing that would just love to gain some fame and notoriety by creating a flow chart for this? Ooh, I can hear the sounds of silence out there. Again, we'll kick this around in the steering committee meeting tomorrow. So what the heck else is on our agenda? You might want to say I'm looking at the full agenda. So looks like we're into the Mary, what do you got?
So at what point are we going to discuss the response to the commissioner's letter?
Well, I guess we might as well do that now, even though it's not on the agenda. So I trust that everybody who's looked at your email received a copy of the letter that the steering committee wrote inquiring of the chair and county administrator. What does the phrase "in other words" actually mean? And so I am meeting with Chair Harrington and Deputy Administrator Ledesma tomorrow morning. And so I would be very interested in any comments that anybody has on that list of questions that you all received in your email. I find it a little frustrating that a clarification letter requires clarification, but that's just the way it goes. So Jim, what do you got?
When was this sent out?
This afternoon or noonish, something like that is when I finally beat it into submission.
Okay, well, I wanted to say, and I just 2 minutes ago sent you all an email about testimony I provided tonight before the Washington County Board of Commissioners, where I tested their policy, their public meeting policy, and saying before we do anything, it has to be recognized and reviewed and kind of approved by them. And so I sent you my testimony there. It's got both things. It's got the first part really talks more about this new policy, which we weren't asked about before. It's something new that came on.
Yeah, it sure did.
And the other part is the attachment, which is for the Significant Natural Resources Committee. It's a 5-page letter, which of course I didn't have time to read because they don't give us that much time, and because I was talking to the 2-minute segment at the front of the meeting. So if you look at the email that I sent out, I just sent it out at 8:11 or so. That actually has the letter that I read into the record asking for a response. And the shock that I got was Catherine Harrington saying, "You'll get a response from our constituents response group or office." And I found that to be not very responsive. Here it is, testimony that the Significant Natural Resources Committee has to present to the Planning Commission. We have to have it recognized and reviewed by the board. And they say, well, you'll hear sometime from this constituent office that they have.
Well, I'm not clear on what the statement means, and I have a hard time believing that anything we submit to the county commissioners needs to be pre-approved.
Expectation.
Seems like it's too circular. So I saw your letter, and I agreed with. I appreciate the depth of it as always. The S&R subcommittee is really doing some serious work, and the process of what we need to do to meet the expectation is so vague as to be unactionable right now. So I hope to write a clarifying letter to the clarifying letter tomorrow.
Well, I was kind of testing the waters on the whole thing, trying to find out what the response was, and I guess we don't know yet.
We don't. But 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, I'm going to be meeting privately with them to ask those questions. And so your letter was a big help. Mary, what do you got?
So Bruce, should you possibly read the letter that you sent out to everybody so
Well,
everybody's clear on what the questions are that you're trying to get clarification on?
I'm not going to read the whole letter, because there's one let me see. Seems like a share screen. Need to be careful just which one.
I do have a couple of edits on it.
Good. So here's the letter. Can everybody see it?
Yep.
Okay, so the CPO4E section states comments by community organizations on any matter of county government will be recognized, received, and reviewed by the board. Okay, that's historic. That's been going on since the CPO program was created. Then the letter goes on to say, the board's letter goes on to say, in other words, the CCI or CPO may not comment as a body on county policy matters, on legal proceedings, such as filing amicus briefs, or on the policies or programs of, quote, any other government entities without providing the Board of County Commissioners with this opportunity to review. And that is clearly an expansion of what the original line meant. And we wrote, this information is not clear and appears to expand the original meaning of that section. Responsibility for recognizing, receiving, reviewing, as well as responding to such communications has always been the responsibility of the board, and they do that. Clarity is lacking about why and when this communication must be proffered to the board. And I saw two possible interpretations that our CPO leaders being asked when acting as a body to first wait for a response, approval, or denial from the board on all communications to service districts, cities, Oregon State, or other quasi-governmental entities before submitting comments to their policies or recommendations to take particular actions? Or is it the board's expectations that they review such communications in parallel, being a CC copy with the entity receiving CPO communications, or is there another interpretation?
Expansion, C.
And then I go on to list actions that CPOs have taken or CCI has taken over the years to give an indication of the scope of the questions that we have. Then I ask for elaboration. The second part of the letter involves expectations around agendas and their archivings, and I am not going to read that because that is of secondary importance and will probably work itself out. Amanda Garcia Snell gave us some direction, which answered some of those questions, and I expect that we will get some more guidance on those questions. So, Mary, what do you got?
Do you want to know where you need to make modifications, or shall I just send those to you?
I want you to send them to me unless
Okay.
the group is wildly interested in the particulars.
Okay. And I think the one thing you didn't touch on is the moving toward the modernization. And
oh, yeah.
They are really focused on Resolution Order 8658. And there is so much other
Move T.
documentation that the program is embedded in, that they can't just look at 8658.
N.
Yes, we started making that case in the original letter, and we will continue making that case until the situation is clearly understood by the county administration office giving directions to community engagement. Because it's not a simple one document fixes it all. And you created a list of all the places in county documents where the CPO program is embedded, and all of those need to be addressed in the course of modernizing the CPO program. So I will attach that. Let's attach that to the minutes for this meeting.
Is anybody interested in knowing what that list is, or if anybody else would like to add to the list? Because it's statewide planning goal 1, the comprehensive framework plan, the community development code, the RNO 8108, and the resolution in order 8658. And I think that's what I have on my list. And if anybody else wants to include or knows of something else that should be included, they should let us know.
Okay. So that is what you're talking about is a medium to long-term issue.
Well, yeah,
I think so. So we can work on that list of places the CPO program is embedded. And for example, the Enhanced Sheriff's Patrol District Advisory Committee bylaws has a designated number of people to be on that committee from the CPO program.
Oh,
As now that I think of it, and so so we'll put that in the minutes, and when the group gets the July minutes to review, take a look at that and provide input on that in addition to your voluminous comments on the minutes. Okay, so have we kicked that around enough for the time being? Anybody got comments? Something to say? Good of the order. Jim, you still got your hand up about something?
I just put it up.
Okay, what do you got?
Mary, I do want to get a copy of all the documents you were just talking about.
Good. I'll send it out in a separate email in addition to putting it in the minutes. Gretchen.
I just wanted to apologize. When I tried to unmute, I got cut off out of the meeting, and it took me several minutes to get back into the meeting. So I apologize.
Well, that's okay. That's frustrating.
But I did want to make a comment. I wrote you this morning. I read what you had sent, and I thought it really encapsulated pretty much all the issues that I had been thinking about, and I wanted to give you kudos. And I made a couple of minor little suggestions to clean it up, but
okay.
I think you did a great job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Mary and I worked on it together. Stan, what do you got?
Sorry to come back into the fray. We went through a whole transitional thing when we came from OSU to the county, and we had the consultants that had come in and we had lengthy discussions about all the things that had been better way back early OSU, what had dropped off at latter OSU, and then continued to drop exponentially.
Condensation.
After we moved into the county. And I'm just wondering how this new program is further seemingly degrading the CPO CCI program with these advancements, and yet there were numerous recommendations that had been made through this transition period that seemingly are getting lost in the ethers.
Yeah, I agree. The transition plan from 2016 should have been more front and center in the re-envisioning process than it was, I feel. And since the modernization project itself has not actually been inaugurated to the public, that would be us, we don't know what inputs are being considered. So I fully expect that a thorough review of the transition plan from 2016 would be considered in a modernization process.
So maybe that could also be included in today's minutes, as well as maybe reintroduced into this modernization effort.
So
I'm
are you
all
saying-
about this technology thing.
so
I'm solid.
so so what we'll do, I don't know if the transition plan has a place that it lives on the county website. And if it doesn't, we will put it on the CCI webpage so that you can get to the two founding ordinances as well as the transition plan. So I'm expecting a fairly robust process as we go through the modernization. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else about the confusion over what the CCI CPO letter means? Good. If you have any thoughts, send them to me at any time of the day or night. I'm sort of disgustingly online a lot when I'm in CCI mode.
There's a lot of confusion about that letter. I've had people
There
tell me
is.
it's just awful.
It is. It
awful.
was a fairly sloppy written letter as far as I'm concerned, which I'm going to save as a comment until I actually have a chance to discuss it a little bit, but let's just leave it there. I don't need to, I said enough about that.
Okay.
So that brings us to the significant natural resource subcommittee report. And I want to mention that the Planning Commission, the Washington County Planning Commission, is going to be hearing presentations and considering ordinances 901 and 902 on September 24th, next Wednesday. Those meetings are recorded, so if you are unable to make the meeting, you can view the recording.
Capital R, SNR.
And one of the issues that I have is a personal issue in that the upland habitat identified on my property is inaccurate. And given that it is fairly grossly inaccurate, especially considering how many trees fell over in the windstorm, I have virtually no upland habitat anymore. And I would like that corrected before any possible development goes on. So I sent that question in a month ago and I've not received any response. So in the process of this, my personal interest is how do you correct the maps, which by any measure are pretty darn inaccurate. But that's what the information we have to go on. So with that personal introduction, I'll put my CCI chair hat back on. And Jim, why don't you give us a update on where the SNR project's at?
seem to be muted.
I don't know. I think you're going to need to unmute to really make a very big impact.
Okay, let's start again.
And there we go.
We had our meeting and we reviewed this 5-page letter that was put together by Lindsay and Fran. Fran has been the scribe who's kept track of all the issues and concerns and different topics we've brought up in our discussions over the past year or so. And she put together a nice letter. She's, of course, on the technical advisory committee. And so she's quite plugged in. I sent you that 5-page letter. Please take a look at it. We'll be discussing some of those issues at our meeting next month. It's going to be on the agenda for August because it's very timely. The county has to, well, they'll be going through planning commission hearings, and then the Board of Commissioners will be having hearings. They're supposed to adopt clear and objective policies, codes by October 1st. So things are speeding up here, and we've got little over 2 months that things are going to be happening in. There are more issues that weren't discussed in the letter, but the letter covers a lot. It's 5 pages. And as I said, this letter from the county saying they have to review and recognize and take care of things really put a stymie in me even getting it to the planning commission. So the issue rests in some ways with the county's new policy of wanting to review and control us a little bit and rein us in. And a lot of people have commented that they really don't like the whole thing. So as far as significant natural resources, the letter kind of covers many of the issues. Now, we should also look at the specific language in proposed ordinance 901 and proposed ordinance 902. The devil's in the details. And of course, these are set out for the codes for the property owners, the developers, and LUT to follow. And the reason why we're doing this whole thing is because there were a lot of subjective decisions made by LUT to grant and allow developers and property owners to do various things that diminish the amount of significant natural resources that we have.
So in some ways, it seems like this is a backdoor way of making a tree code in a way.
I will be attending a tree talk tomorrow evening at 6:30, where there's an expert from Portland who's worked on tree codes, and that's at 6:30. So I've also got the city of Tigard interested in a tree code too. So I really need to get some ideas together. I am not a big fan of the value, the point system that the county's put forth as far as their tree code. They think it's going to be an incentive for developers to save trees, but I'm skeptical of that. I have seen some places here in Tigard where the developers were asked to keep trees, and there's trees really close to houses, and that trees have a great value in many, many ways, as you know. And so it'll be interesting to hear what this fellow at the Tree Talk does tomorrow. So that's starting at 6:30. If any of you want me to send you a copy of the link, I can do that.
Why don't you send a copy of that announcement out to the same email that you sent the report out, your letter out to?
Okay, I don't know that they send out this special link. They may have a limited number of people who come.
Okay,
But
well,
I can at least send you that CC that we're working on it, and maybe next month we'll have a more robust discussion of trees.
oh yes, next month the CCI agenda will focus on the SNR work.
Good. It's very timely now to do that.
Yeah. how the Cooper Mountain plan that Beaverton is doing has a lot of natural resource protection. How synchronized is the county's work with Beaverton's Cooper Mountain work?
That's one thing we discuss in the letter, and I can go right to it and read it to you. I believe I can find it. Oh no, actually we changed it, didn't we? So essentially, oh, I've got the wrong document here, no wonder. Anyway, Beaverton is doing an inventory of trees also. And we are interested in having the county adapt or adopt some of the city inventory of trees into their program. There's different considerations we have with cities, maybe related to wildlife corridors where the wildlife travels from one place to another, that there needs to be some coordination on and cooperation on to make it work. So there's some things like that. Let me see if I can find the exact language that we were using. It's in the letter that you have. There's a heading. Actually, I don't think it says Cooper Mountain anymore, but it's something about working with cities. I don't have it right in front of me.
Okay, well, let's get all that lined up for the August meeting. We're kind of running a little kind of tight on time. So thank you to the SNR subcommittee for doing the work and publishing the letter and in using a sports metaphor, moving the ball forward. Then we have the transportation subcommittee. I don't think there's really anything that the transportation subcommittee has done that needs reporting. Ken, are you kind of in agreement with that?
Yeah, I've been taking some internal questionnaires from our CPO, and I'm collecting that data now, kind of taking a survey what's relevant to our area. And I was encouraging a couple of meetings ago for everybody to do that in their own areas. So, I haven't rolled everything up yet to send off to Diami, but if anyone wants to inquire within your own CPO what you want to accomplish or what issues your clientele, your constituents have, be sure to try and document them in simple, like some of the ones we got were, we need traffic lights at certain locations, things like that. So I'm correlating all that.
So did you actually create a survey of questions?
No, I just posted stuff on Facebook, and that's the second thing. I haven't done it yet, but that's what I've been thinking of doing, is like doing a I don't know, monkey survey deal for that.
Yeah. Okay, good. Gretchen, what do you got?
Hi, I have been walking streets in King City, and I've been asking about transportation issues other than Fisher Road. We're not talking about Fisher Road. And the big issue that I'm concerned about and citizens are concerned about is there's a development going on right at the corner of Roy Rogers and Beef Bend Road, and it's going to do improvements to the road for the few blocks up to Elsner, and then it's going right back to the incredibly insufficient country road that is Beef Bend Road and that arterial. And I mean, that's actually the question I wanted to raise with Mr. Valentine is, hey, how come Beef Bend Road, which is now going to have within the next 4 years, at least 5,000 more people using that road every day, on top of all of the traffic we've got, there has been nothing to get it on the MSTIP list. And people down here are pretty hot about the problems with Beef Bend Road. And I'm sure Jim's driven it enough times. He knows how bad it is. And so I'm done. That's my transportation reporting.
I will hold off asking more questions about what the heck Tigard is doing regarding that, but I didn't ask that question. Melissa, you got your hand up.
I do have my hand up. So I just wanted to correct Ken. He said that he was planning to send, ask Diami to participate for additional topics for CPOs. If you're looking to schedule something with LUT for a CPO presentation, you need to contact me. If you contact Diami, it will delay your process.
No, I wasn't
Because
gonna.
Diami will have to turn around and contact me, and it'll go on and on and on and on and on. So that's all.
So the bottom line is that Melissa is all things LUT.
No. Don't ever say that.
Don't oversay. Okay. Well,
Let
you are
me
our
clarify a few things.
sole and only contact.
Yes, correct.
Ken.
All right, yeah, let me just clarify a few things. I wasn't going to have him present something here. I was just going to get him data, email it to him, like a summary. Is that what are you talking about?
It will delay your process significantly. If
So I
it
go
would be
through
much
you want me to
faster and
send
more
that-
appropriate for you to send that through me.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'll send it to you, then you take care of it. Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
All
Diami
right,
isn't the best, isn't necessarily
Yeah,
your number one contact for all your topics.
Right.
For example, MISTIP would not be necessarily, Diami didn't lead the MISTIP involvement process. That was a different staff person. So if Gretchen would contact Diami about that, he would contact me, then I would contact the correct person.
Right, and this was the the transportation plan, so that's what I was.
Thank you, Melissa.
No problem.
All right, thanks.
No problem.
Okay. Moving on to the communications subcommittee. Mary and Virginia created a list of website corrections and enhancements and met with ICA. And Mary, you want to inform us as to the outcome of that meeting?
Better done by Virginia.
Well, but she is only online in login only. She's not actually in the meeting.
She's not really here.
No, she started the recording, and so she stayed on to keep that solid.
Okay. So we did meet with ICA last week, and we had a list of issues, and we ran through the web pages for the CPO CCI program, and ICA has already started to make changes. Some of them, I think, are more policy changes that may not happen, but she's made good progress on the list, and we're really encouraged that we are going to get web pages more up to date with current information and get rid of some of the outdated information. So if you go online and you see problems, just funnel those back to either Virginia or I, and we will see that what we can do to get improvements.
How about that? Speaking of improvements,
there's Melissa. She's got her hand up again.
Melissa, are you still have your hand up, or is it a new raise?
No, I just haven't taken it down. Sorry.
Okay. That's okay. We're flexible around here. So some good news. The International Association of Public Participation, known as IAP2, has approved our membership, and we are now in their database as CPO1, CPO3, CPO ... So you'll be able to go and log in as a CPO, and all members of a CPO will have the same account. Now, something I just realized in this meeting was I don't know what your passwords are. So that typically slows down a login process considerably. So as soon as I contact the IAP2 administrator and figure out the password situations, you will all be able to log into the IAP2 account and sign up for their classes. And the contact from IAP2 uses our CPOX leaders at Gmail. So whoever is in that email list will be given access to IAP2. So, Melissa, I see your hands up now.
Yes, unrelated to that, but all of the CPO chairs should be receiving our email, Friday emails, LUT News. They should be receiving our quarterly update and all of our media releases, but only if you're using the Gmail email accounts. So just wanted to toss that out there in case somebody's not.
So I've signed up for so many different things, for so many different county newsletters. I get 3 copies of the LUT newsletter because nobody checks to see if I've already registered.
Well, if you're getting 3 copies, it's because you've got 3 different emails.
No, I have the same email. It all comes to the same email address. So something is not getting checked there. But I will observe that from one side of the county to the other, there's a kind of shaky tracking of the volunteers. So that's not a reflection on you, Melissa. That's
I was
just
going to say, we don't track volunteers at all, so that's probably more than shaky.
well,
I mean,
or
LUT
who
doesn't.
gets the newsletter? I mean, the fact that I get 3 copies of the LUT newsletter is an indication to the same email address. Says something. Okay, so so IAP2 is there. Has anybody decided to do a flow chart of the agenda approval process? Thought I would try to sneak it in. Okay, let's do the round table. CPO 1, I'll cover. Virginia's not here. We had something last month. It was the sergeant for the sheriff's office that is in charge of traffic patrol gave us a great presentation on what the sheriff's office is doing regarding traffic monitoring and control. So we'll put his name in the minutes, and you can contact. Well, if you contact your sheriff office outreach person, they can connect you with the sergeant that will give you that presentation, and it is well worth getting. And I'd like to thank Roger Ellingson for stirring the pot and getting that created. So CPO 3 would be next.
That'd be me. Greetings. We've had a lot going on the last couple of months. First, just an update on the ongoing saga of the Portland Golf Club dredging project. For the 3rd time, their application has been kicked back by the Division of State Lands, deemed incomplete. They have yet submitted it a 4th time and will not have any action upon that. No, I take that back. No, the Division of State Lands kicked it back to them. They have until September to resubmit. They want to proceed. I'm not quite sure why DSL keeps giving them, time after time after time to answer the same question that has been asked again and again. There are alternatives to their proposed dredging and dumping, and DSL has pretty much told them that, but they are still allowing them to consider this proposal. Even though they have received no approvals from DSL or Army Corps or Clean Water Services, they have begun to clear brush and trees immediately adjacent to the wetlands, which is concerning. And we have notified those agencies that that's happening. But no formal action has been taken by any agency against that. We were informed of their plan to ultimately erect a privacy fence that will run all along the Fano Creek path, blocking the view of the wetlands from 81st to 86th. So this is in stark contrast to their claim of being neighborly in their application. And they were trying to propose this dredging project. So if you haven't noticed, I'm a little frustrated with that. But so right now, the main project is in a holding pattern until September, and I'll have more information then. The other golf course in our neighborhood, Redtail. Jim?
I was just going to ask about, you said that they were clearing near the wetlands, and is this kind of grading? I mean, there's the MBTA, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, which does not allow clearing, grading, damaging things during mating season and breeding season. And that would be a federal law. So I was just wondering if they're doing anything of that ilk there. I know many developers do that. And when they do it from April or March to into August, that's still during breeding season.
Mm-hmm. They aren't doing really any grading, but they're doing some significant clearing, and some of it is right up to the wetlands. And also the state says they need to be at least 50 feet from that wetland. And that's not happening. So we're pursuing that. But that's, I'll look into, I'm sorry, what was the name of that Bird Treaty Act?
The Migratory Bird Treaty Act.
Federal law.
It's a federal law, the MBTA.
I will look into that. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. You got another
So-
one?
Yes.
And then with regards to the Redtail Golf Course, Portland Diamond Project has intimated they'd like the city of Portland to sell them that so they can offer it up to an MLB team to place a nice big Major League Baseball stadium on the Redtail property. It's been obvious to everyone involved that there is just no infrastructure for that in the area. So there has been a community organization, Save Redtail, formed, and they're getting organized and talking to the right people in the legislature. So hopefully we'll have some information on that in the near future. Competing with there's a lot of ifs around it. Competing with Portland is Salt Lake, who's much further along in the development of their proposed area. So I love baseball, but we're keeping fingers crossed that MLB chooses Salt Lake over Portland, and then this goes away. We also have been partnering a little alongside Friends of Alpenrose. There's very large, a 260 plus development plan for the Alpenrose property, and a few of us attended their community meeting at Hayhurst 2 weeks ago. Commissioner Fye was there, Chair Harrington was there. It was really a good turnout. A lot of people sharing a lot of ideas. And then we also were able to enlist 2 new board members for our CPO. We almost
Yay.
have all officer slate.
Cool. Did you turn their names into community engagement?
Pardon?
Did you turn their names into community
Yes.
engagement?
Yep, they are officially on our rolls.
Cool.
Have been voted on.
Okay, let's move along to CPO, whatever is next. What is that? 4K? You can't give
Yep.
Gretchen, you kind of gave us a
I'm-
little road update. Is there anything else?
Well, I'm very excited. 4K is actually up and running again. And we meet the fourth Monday of the month at King City Village, which is apartments for seniors with services. They provide meals and such. And we're going to have presentations on potential developments that are going to be happening and the transportation issue, which I previously discussed. But if anybody is interested in attending, we do have hybrid capability, so someone can Zoom in. And as I said, we meet at 7 o'clock on the fourth Monday, except we're meeting at 6 o'clock this month because of a special presentation. Anyway,
Okay, very
that's
good.
it for 4K.
4KB of CPO 4M. Sounds like you,
4M. Do you want to do it, Jill?
The only update now, it turns out, I found out that we're going to be doing the SNR presentation next month at the CCI. So proposed ordinance 901 and 902 are proposed, and so those are pending. So I think that this is an issue right now that we can discuss further at our next meeting. So what would you like to add to that?
Well, we were going to have Ariana Scipione, who's the Regional Wildlife Habitat Specialist for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. But it occurred to us again that the Planning Commission, the Washington County Planning Commission, has it on its agenda also. And we've been involved with this for 8 or 9 years, so we're going to try and talk to Ariana some other time. And we'll be attending the Planning Commission on the 24th. And we may be able to submit our letter. I don't know.
yeah, I think that you should just plan on submitting the letter and let the chips fall where they do. It's more
Well,
important.
we could submit them on our own instead of with the CPO, but with the CPO, you're supposed to get more time to talk in some detail. So I do think we'll plan on doing that. And it's just some sticky situation happening here.
Yeah.
So
Okay, CPO 4, CPO, what is that? 4, 5, 6. Anybody from CPO 6 want to weigh in on something?
Well, basically, we're on summer hiatus until September. So other than the transportation issue we talked about a little while ago, there's not a lot of activity going on right now.
Okay, very good. CPO 6, 7. I noticed that Nancy Hazlett was in the meeting initially, but she dropped out. Mary, do you have anything to add to CPO 7?
Yeah, Nancy is our new chair, and she's jumped in with both feet, which is great to see. And we took July off, and unless something big happens between now and Monday, we'll probably take August off as well. We're planning on having a presentation from the Beaverton Resource Center in September. So that's all I have to report.
Okay, CPO 7, 8, CPO 8. Anybody from CPO 8 around? Didn't see him. 9, 10. That would be Paul. Is he here? Okay, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Any comments for the good of the order?
There is anything going on
15.
in
There we go.
CPO 15 at the moment. We have multiple co-chairs, and they haven't decided on a schedule for the next year yet. And they finished the last meeting more than a month ago. So until I see a new schedule, I can't really comment on what's going to happen next.
Okay, Jim, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I've heard, I don't know that it's true, but it's something that we had talked briefly about a few months ago. And that is that there was an appeal of the tile flat ordinance, and that decision should be coming down later this month.
Okay, something to look forward to. Anything for the good of the order? Then I would consider the routine motion to end this jolly gab fest.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, kids, class dismissed.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Take care. Stay cool.